Hello and welcome to Find Happiness, a podcast dedicated to exploring the many ways we can find joy and contentment in our lives. We're so glad you're joining us today. Whether you're seeking ways to improve your own happiness or just looking for some inspiration and guidance, we hope you'll find something valuable in our discussions. So sit back, relax, and let's start our journey to happiness together. Welcome, Julie Mclean from the United States. We're excited to have you with us today and hear about your extensive experience in suicide prevention and promoting mental health stability.
Thank
Welcome.
you so much for having me. This is fantastic. It's definitely a necessary subject for the
Yeah, it is.
masses. Now,
Mm. Welcome. So, anyways, how did your journey with mental health begin?
my journey with mental health started back when I was 16, and it was the first time that I attempted to take my own life.
Whoa.
I isolated myself, I took a broken bottle, and I had every intention on taking care of slitting my wrist with a dirty broken bottle. And before I did that, I really had to sit back and do a little bit of contemplation. And did I really want to do this, not only to me, but to my family? Even though I was in such despair, what would it do to my family? And so I didn't. I always say I'm a suicide survivor.
Of course you
But
are.
then,
Of course you are.
yep. So after I had my son, again, those really down feelings started pressing on me. I should be excited to have a baby, but there was just so much on in my life. And he was 3 when I attempted again to take my own life.
Wow.
And I came really close. I took a bunch of pills and drank a whole lot of alcohol to go with it. And when I realized, what am I doing? I have a 3-year-old at home who needs me. I was able to get help then.
Wow. That's
And then the
awesome.
years progressed, and I went through many other different challenges in my life. And back in 2019 is when my husband really stepped up and saved my life. And all by asking me questions because I was ready to take my life again.
Wow.
And he asked me, he came home and he saw how distraught I was, and he asked me if I was okay. And I couldn't even speak. I just shook my head to say no. And then he asked me, do I want to hurt myself? And all I could do was shake my head yes. And then he asked me if I had a plan. And I shook my head yes to that as well.
Okay.
And he knew I had a plan. I've been thinking about this. I knew exactly what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And he made sure that he got me help.
That's
So that's
awesome.
where it all started.
You owe a lot to him. Let's say
Mhm.
thank you to him. So thank you to your husband.
Thank you, Mike.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So what were some of the thoughts you had that led you to being suicidal?
Growing up with an abusive father, I was always searching for his approval and his love.
Okay.
And so I never felt like I was worth anything because I was constantly fighting that abusive battle with him.
Okay.
And so I didn't feel that my life was worth anything. I didn't feel like I could do anything. I didn't feel worthy to be in this world. And so every day since I'm 16,
Mm-hmm.
I fight that battle and that struggle to not think about suicide because it's always there for me. And that's quite common in some people that they have these constant thoughts of suicide. Some of them end up being successful. I'm fortunate to have a system around me that I haven't. I always say I'm a failure. A failure is good in this case.
Um, that's some real story. So what
Hmm.
were examples of those voices you had in your head that led you to being suicidal?
Uh, the examples were, you know, things like, why are you here? Why are you in this world? How, what makes you think you can go on other people's podcasts and talk about mental health when you have your own struggles with mental health? What makes you think you could stand up on a stage to tell people that? I mean, that's just some of the things that are going on now. But growing up, it was always having that lack of self worth that I always struggled with. The voices always telling me, why? Why do you even bother? Nobody's going to pay any attention to you.
Yeah.
And so those were the reasons why I was thinking all of these things. And I'm like, well, if I have no worth, why am I here? And it's been a struggle to find my self worth and realize that I need to be here to do exactly what I'm doing right now.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So, what made the thought of suicide appealing to you at the time?
It was a means to an end to stop the pain. A lot of times when people are suicidal, they're triggered by pain. And I've
Yeah,
had a chronic back and knee problem as well. And
so
back in
sorry.
2019, that triggering from the pain that I was in, I mean, I couldn't move at one point because my back was so bad. And so that trigger really was hard to deal with and hard to handle. And that's what led me down this road
Okay,
of
yeah.
wanting to take my own life.
You didn't take it. You're here.
I am here.
You're here. So, how do we catch such thoughts early?
We can't do it alone. We have to have a support system around us
Yeah,
that helps us.
yeah,
I can't do this alone. Obviously, if it wasn't for my husband, I wouldn't be here.
exactly.
I've gone beyond the point of having that consciousness of not wanting to hurt people within my family. I've even had a family member take his own life at a young age.
Hmm.
So it would devastate my family if I did this again. And so you have to listen to what you're saying in your head. You have to work on you. You have to realize that you are important. It doesn't matter who you
Exactly.
are.
Yeah,
Understanding your own self worth and having that support system around you to kind of help you with
yeah,
that self worth.
exactly.
And that's where I am today. I have people who watch out for me all the time. I have people I know I can call if I'm struggling, and they're always going to be there. So making sure that as an outsider,
Mm-hmm.
not as much as an in as yourself, but as an outsider,
Yeah,
pay attention to the people that are around you.
exactly.
Is that person canceling appointments? Uh, are you planning to go out with them and they decide at the last minute, oh, I really don't want to go. I don't feel good. Are they always, every time you see them, or are they always smiling and saying, oh, everything's great? Or are they just sad all the time? These are the red flags that people put out there
Mm-hmm.
so that others know that they're really struggling and they're
Exactly.
having a hard time. And that's where those questions that my husband asked really come in handy. You know, are you okay? Do you think you're going to hurt yourself? And do you have a plan? If I get people to understand nothing else but that and know that it's our responsibility as a society to ask those questions if people are in crisis or if you suspect people are in crisis. So, as a society, we start the ball rolling
Yeah.
by asking those questions, and then the conversation
Mm-hmm.
continues.
Yeah.
And it's not always an easy conversation.
I know.
My family and my friends were really surprised when I had my mental crisis because I was the happy go lucky girl. I was the one who planned everything and tried to do everything. And then when I couldn't get it all done, I felt terrible. I was such a perfectionist. It wasn't perfect. And it's like, okay, so it's not I know now, so it's not perfect. So what? But back then, before I went through the start of this journey, I really had to realize that there's no such thing as perfectionism.
Yeah,
And if you need to be perfect, remember that being perfect just means that you're never going to learn anything.
exactly.
You have to be
I agree
able to
with you.
fail
Yeah,
to learn something.
exactly.
And that's how that's what I do, and that's how I get through it.
Okay, okay. Wow, 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 wow. So, what inspired you to start advocating for mental health and suicide prevention?
Going back to 2019 and realizing that all the people around me from all walks of life were sharing their experiences during this intervention, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and the way my family and friends reacted
Yeah,
to what I told them.
yeah,
They didn't expect it from me because I was hiding it so well. And every time I talk about it, I feel good. I feel excited to be able to share, to hope that one thing that I say will sink into somebody's mind
yeah.
and get them to think, oh, wait a second, I know somebody like that, or I am somebody like that. And realizing that it's okay to not be okay.
Of course, it's
There's
okay to
nothing to
not be
be
okay.
ashamed of. Yeah. There's nothing to be ashamed of because we all go through some type of mental health crisis at one point in our lives. And we just have to remember that you're having a bad day, not a bad life.
Of course.
And so when it comes to suicide, 79% of men who attempt suicide, who die by suicide, 79% of men are the ones who are the ones most at risk because they're the ones dying from suicide. And they're the ones that die violently from suicide. A man is more likely to die from a gunshot wound than a woman. Because a woman sits there and thinks, I'm not going to mess up this house and somebody have to clean it. And so women are more likely to take pills or to hang themselves. And men are more likely to die by gunfire, and whether it's self-inflicted or be in a situation
I get you.
where it's afflicted upon them.
That's true. That's true. Men go through stuff, and a lot of people think that men are
Hmm.
just too strong, But the thing is, everybody should open their mouth and say what they go through, especially in hard times. People should
Hmm.
open up, and this awareness is something that we should really push out. Okay,
And
yes,
it can be very cultural.
yeah, I
It could
can.
be very cultural. You find that in certain cultures, there's that stigma of their mental health, and they're not strong enough, and they have the devil inside of them, and all of that, whether it's a religion or a culture, we have to put that aside. It we have to be able to say, help me.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
have to be able to say, what can I do to help you, and not be afraid. I always joke, there's a saying in the United States that real men wear pink. Well, guess what? Real men talk about their feelings too.
That's
You're not less of
hilarious.
a man if you wear pink. You're not less of a man if you talk about your
Oh,
feelings. You're not less of a
okay.
man if you cry. The same thing with women.
So
You don't have to be that hard nosed.
real men wear pink, and what do fake men
Yep.
wear?
What do what?
What do fake men wear?
Thick wear men wear anything that fits. My husband's a thick man. I'm a thick woman. We wear anything that fits.
Oh no, your husband is a real man because he helped you get out
Yes,
of
he
the
is.
depression. He's a real man. He
Yes,
wears
he is.
pink.
He does. He does wear pink.
Okay, yeah. So can you share some statistics about mental health and suicide that you think are important for people to know?
Well, like I said before, 1 in 4 people experience a mental health crisis. 1 in 4. 25% of us. 19% of the population actually suffers from an anxiety challenge.
Yeah.
Think about what might make you anxious. Are you afraid to fly? Are you afraid to walk outside at night? Are you afraid to speak up? That's all anxiety that builds up inside of us. So that right there shows you that this is not uncommon. It's definitely something that's common because we all deal with it. 37.5% of the people who suffer are men. And like I said, 79% of those are successful but to die by suicide, and 90% of all suicides or suicide attempts are done by men.
Yeah. Wow.
They're more likely. I mean, and even age demographics are a big, huge thing. You look at younger generations and the kids and the teenagers, they have a lot of stressors in their life that they're constantly dealing with. And so they're very susceptible and likely to think that they're not worth it. And the elderly, as we age, we lose family, we lose friends, we lose spouses, and we get depressed and tired, and we don't want to live that life anymore. Some people in different professions. I was amazed when I found out that the number 2 profession with the highest suicide rates are dentists. Dentists. Right. I mean, you would think doctors. Doctors are number 1, but dentists,
Mm.
veterinarians,
Wow.
people in the financial industry are all in the top 10. Obviously, police and first responders are there as well. But when you look at the people, construction workers have a high susceptibility to suicide. They have the means, some of them have motive, and so that's what they do. And it's costly. It really costs a lot of money to deal with all of this because there's not a whole lot of healthcare out there for people with mental illness or mental health challenges. You go to a hospital if you're having a mental health crisis and they don't know what to do. And it costs you money. It costs companies money because of a lack of work productivity, because people are so stressed out they can't do their jobs. They can't take care of their kids. They can't get up in the morning. So the cost alone of suicide and mental health and mental illness, it's just huge. And it's all because we're not talking about it. We need to talk about it. We need to open up the doors for people who are afraid. We need more people like me and like you who say, yes, we can talk about this. We don't have to be afraid. And think about what it's going to do for the generations to come if we start talking now. If we start talking now as adults, that shows our kids that you can talk about this. And then they'll tell their kids that they can talk about it. And it keeps kids out of trouble because now we have this dialogue going on with our kids that we can turn around and see when they're stressing and see when they're struggling and hopefully be able to talk to them and stop that struggle and be supportive and show them that it doesn't have to be a struggle.
Yeah. Okay, so this statistics is really, really, really interesting. It's good for people to know this. So what are some common misconceptions about mental health and suicide that you feel needs to be discussed or addressed?
Asking questions if somebody's in crisis, you have to ask the questions. You can't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
You can't think that by talking to somebody about suicide, they're going to contemplate suicide. So that's a huge misconception, is people don't talk because they don't want to put it in somebody's head that they can take their own life. I think that's the
Okay.
biggest one. And one thing that people don't realize is that if somebody is deep into crisis, it is so difficult to actually utter any words. I could not say the words yes, I could not say the words no when I was in
Yeah.
crisis. So being
Okay.
aware of that is perfect.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, that being said, what are some strategies that have been effective in preventing suicide, and how can we make them more widely available?
The strategies that have been affected are something called mental health first aid,
Yeah.
which is available in most countries,
Yeah.
and talking about everything, therapy. There's so
Okay.
many options for therapy nowadays. I mean, you can find a therapist on Fiverr. You can just search online, and most of these therapists now are doing virtual therapy sessions. So you don't have to say that you're going to the therapist. You can just go in your bedroom and click on a link, and you're
Okay.
with a therapist. So those are some of the things.
Oh, great. Okay. So, how can we also start conversations about mental health and suicide in a way that, is supportive and non-stigmatizing?
Be open minded. If you're suffering with some mental health crises, find that one person that you really trust
Yeah.
that's going to say, hey, I'm here for you. If somebody comes to you and says, I need help, this is not something you can just get over. This is not something that goes away with time. This is something that people need to talk about and need support with. So just don't write it off. If you write it off, they're not going to get the help that they need, and they may not be here tomorrow.
Wow. Okay. Okay. And how can we better support those who are struggling with mental health challenges and thoughts of suicide?
Again, being open, being available. Don't just write them off. Don't tell them it's in their minds. When it comes to culturally, it's not an evil spirit. It's not something you just get over. It's not something that makes you less of a person. This is chemical. Your neural
Okay.
pathways get swapped around. Your body kind of shuts down, and you need somebody there for it. So paying attention is a huge thing.
Paying attention is the word.
Hmm.
Paying
Yeah.
attention.
You have
Okay.
to pay attention to
And
yourself, and you have to pay attention to the people around you.
okay. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. And how can we work towards creating a society that's more supportive of mental health and suicide prevention?
Everybody needs to stop the stigma. Get rid of the stigma of talking about mental health. Once we stop the stigma and we start talking more regularly, then we'll automatically prevent suicide, because people won't feel that despair. People will see when somebody is in despair. So
Yeah.
making it a normal form of conversation is really the key to preventing suicide.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And now the biggest question. I know you'll be wondering what I want to ask. What's the final question though? So
Go ahead and ask.
how can people connect with you on social media and the web?
I have a website called
Okay.
starttheconvo.net. You can
Mm-hmm.
email me at Julie, Julie, at
Mm-hmm.
starttheconvo.net. You can find, I have a group on Facebook that's called
Okay.
Start the Convo.
Yeah.
You see a theme here. I'm on
Yeah.
Instagram as Start the Convo with Julie Mclean. I'm on TikTok as Start the Convo with Julie. And I'm on LinkedIn just under my own name, Julie Mclean. So there's many ways people can get a hold of me. As a matter of fact, if you're on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, I have been doing a series of posts about finding gratitude,
Okay.
because it's very hard to find gratitude when you don't feel gracious enough for yourself. So it's
Okay.
been a series that's going to go probably till the end of February, and then I'm going to start another series. So
Okay.
they can always find me on those outlets.
Start the convo. Start the convo. That's the word.
Starttheconvo.net.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for joining us on Find Happiness and for sharing your journey with mental health. Your passion for advocating for mental health and suicide prevention is truly inspiring.
And this is
And
what makes me happy.
yeah, yeah, and we appreciate the important information and insights you shared about these crucial issues. It's so important to have open and supportive conversations about mental health and suicide and to work towards creating a more supportive society for
Yep.
those who are struggling. We hope that the strategies and resources discussed in this episode will be helpful in preventing suicide and supporting those in need. Remember, you're not alone and there's help available. Take care, and we hope you have a happy and healthy day. Thanks for joining Find Happiness. See you some other time on the next episode. Bye.